Off.
All right. Well, welcome to the students that have joined us. Hopefully we'll get a few more as we move through. Me and my compadres here are joining you from OneAmerica to discuss IT and computer science careers. So we're going to kick it off for the first few minutes here and just do a round robin, introduce ourselves and kind of explain what we do. And then we'll get into deeper conversations about how we got here and some opportunities that you might have even as early as now. So Dave, you're to my right in the Brady Bunch. So why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Sure. So actually, I'm British and I grew up in Scotland in the UK. And so when I was planning my college, path, I planned to do electrical engineering originally, but I didn't have the best grades, and so there was a new software engineering 2-year program that I joined because it was they had quite a lot of capacity because it was a brand new program, and so I did that, and I had the option to go on to do a 4-year program, but decided better just to get a job and then have 2 years experience by the time the 4-year graduates were looking for a job. But then I ended up being employed for a couple of years. So eventually I got a part-time data entry job and supplemented my income with other part-time work. And then where I was working, they had an opening for a database developer, and some kind of static website development. This was back in the early 90s, so is when the web was just kind of getting going. And so from there, my wife, I met her in Scotland when she was studying abroad, and she was from Indiana, so we came back here to live. I was able to get a job at a consulting firm, whether the family member of my wife's, he worked there, and so that was a bit of a connection. And I got a place at Lilly downtown, and after 2 years, Lilly offered me a full-time job, and so I stayed there for 11 years. And then I got rebadged by Lilly to IBM, meaning that they transferred us from Lilly employees to IBM employees. So I didn't like that much. So after a couple of months, I joined OneAmerica. I'm a Java developer, but I haven't really ended up doing any Java development. I learned some new things like ETL. I don't know if you know what that is. It's integrating different systems together. Anyway, so for the almost 10 years now, I've been working at OneAmerica. And throughout that time, I've done less programming and more architectural work. And now I'm a solution architect, and I don't program anymore. So I think a bit later we got a section where we talk about our current jobs and what they involve. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll touch on that.
So I'll leave that to a bit later. So yeah, is that good enough for now?
Thanks, Dave. Sean, how about you?
Awesome. Well, first, just say appreciate all the students who join. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to folks, and very excited about this. It's always fun to reach out and share our experiences and so forth. So I'm a little bit different. I grew up in Indiana, and I got a 4-year college degree. However, it was not in information technology. My degree is actually in finance and economics. And my first full-time real job, so to speak, was at OneAmerica, where I'm at now. So I started quite a while ago, and kind of moved into IT almost by happenstance. We were working on a project that was critical to the success of the business team that I led, and so I temporarily went over to lead the IT project, and that was in 2000. And I'm still on loan over to IT. Ever since then. So, I didn't think about this until I was looking at this group, but the 4 people here, we have widely varying roles in the organization, and working in IT and across the business. And I think that's kind of indicative of IT in general, is that there are a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of different roles. Definitely it's not a situation where everybody's got to be a coder. There's a lot of needs across a wide array of roles. So that's a little bit about me. I'll hand it over to Kyle next.
Sure. Thanks, Sean. So I feel free to ask questions as we go along. I see one in the chat right now. And so the question is, what is OneAmerica? And so we're a financial services company. We're located primarily, our headquarters are downtown Indianapolis. And we do things like provide life insurance, provide retirement services for people to save up for retirement and those sorts of things. So we're all in the financial services industry, and just like any other IT organization, right, you're here to support the business and help make the business successful, because generally businesses can't operate without technology these days. So my background is again different than everyone else's. Unlike Dave, I actually did go into electrical engineering, so that's what my degree is in. But then after school, I found a job doing system administration work, right? So started there, being fresh out of college, not being tethered down. I basically volunteered anytime someone said, "Hey, we need someone that can do X, Y, and Z," and raised my hand and said, "Hey, I'd be willing to learn. I don't know now, but you need someone if you don't have anybody, happy to do that." And working for a nonprofit at the time, that was generally okay. Great, here's some information, go run, let us know if you have questions, sort of a thing. So one of the things that I learned throughout my whole career as I moved from different parts of IT, whether it be system administration, databases, a little bit of coding, those sorts of things, is volunteer for things that you want to try, and try them all, right? Because you'll find what you like and what you don't like, and what you're good at and what you're not good at. And even ahead of getting to the job, there's definitely some things that you can do to find out those things as well. And we'll talk more about that as we go on. So it looks like Sean may be having technical issues, but Jillian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Jillian Lipke. I work in the EPMO portion of OneAmerica. So I work with project and program managers. I have been in the area for around 20 years and predominantly in IT for the majority of those years. So setting up programs and projects to support IT related projects. So as you can tell, OneAmerica is a financial service company, but there's a huge need for IT across most business organizations. And so that's where we kind of come in, identifying whether there are migrations or integrations or any kind of projects like that. And so we lead the charge there. Like Sean and Dave and Kyle, I didn't start here. I think that's common amongst a lot of people that are in IT. I actually started as a pre-med major. I was 2 years in when I started working for a hospital system that was shifting their medical records to an electronic system. And they asked for people that had computer knowledge and also medical knowledge, and it paid a heck of a lot better than the night shift I was working during college. And I fell in love with programming. And so I started a 2+2+2 program. So I did 2 years as a associates in computer science. I went on and finished my bachelor's in an additional 2 years. And that was in programming. And then I spent several years in programming and web design. And then from there, I went and did my master's in leadership and strategy, and ultimately stepped into the program in the director role that I'm currently in, kind of managing rather than coding. So there are definitely days that I miss being in the weeds with everybody and actually doing the coding and programming. But definitely some opportunities, as Kyle said. I started kind of at the base doing some business analysis and system analysis. And then as I was completing my degree and getting more on the job training, much like Kyle, anytime someone said I said, I'll do that. Let me try. And I call it letter chasing. I did a lot of letter chasing in my 20s. So if my company would pay for letters behind my name, any kind of certification, I was totally down for that. So I have certifications in a whole lot of things that I don't use anymore, but that's definitely an option along with college or instead of college in IT these days. So just a ton of opportunities to kind of start where you are and then grow from there.
And I think just go on from Jillian there too. I think when a lot of us started in the industry, right, a college degree was expected. I mean, that was like the base level entry. That is definitely not the case today. There are so many openings and so many different things that people need, that really the baseline is, do you have something beyond high school? And when I say beyond high school, it's, have you taken certifications, for example? Did you do internships in high school, over the summer, those sorts of things, right? Or even maybe start out with a 2-year degree like Dave did and eventually go on and get a bachelor's or what have you. The key that employers want to see is, can you learn on the job, right? And can you, do you know enough to get started? So having that little extra piece beyond high school is really important in order to get your foot in the door. And once you get your foot in the door, there's lots of opportunities because, like I said, people are in need of help all over the place in IT at this point in time.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. Sean, what do you say from your side of OneAmerica? What kind of opportunities did you explore outside of just your college classes?
Well, I was in school in the 90s, and I would say that it was different then. I really kind of graduated college and then started thinking, well, what now? Which resulted in me. So I actually, and like I said, I had a finance degree, which is mostly accounting. And by the end of my college career, I realized I hated accounting. So I was like, oh, what do I do now? And I didn't like working at banks. And somebody said, well, what about that insurance company? And 20 years old, young 20s, I didn't even know what insurance was because, I was immortal then. So I started here really just kind of operations, just needing a job. And I really agree with and appreciate what Kyle said it's really about your ability to learn and demonstrate that you're able to work hard and partner with people. Because then once you have that opportunity, you can demonstrate your ability to accomplish objectives that the business has, to learn things, to bring in skills that the organization needs. Then opportunities are not very limited. There's a lot of opportunities out there. It's just a matter of finding the one that matches your strengths and your passions and where you want to invest your energy.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting take on that, Sean. I think from the perspective of you having been at OneAmerica for a very long time, and I think some of us have dipped our toes in some other organizations along the way. So being unafraid to try something new and seek out new opportunities is so important, especially early in your career. So I think let's segue a little bit and talk about some of the opportunities that you guys have had in your careers to work on specific projects or specific tools, just to try to give an idea of the breadth of opportunity, even just within OneAmerica, for an IT student or for someone expecting to come into the computer science area. I will throw that out there.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I was brought on at OneAmerica as a Java developer and hardly did any Java development in the end, just because of what happened with the project I was supposed to be on. I got cancelled, and so I was already in the door. So I started learning some new technologies that I hadn't worked on before because they needed somebody to work on that, and learned how to do that, and that let me progress through, and then I started learning how to, because there was a need for somebody to do, to architect a whole solution. So bring out all these different systems together, integrate them, because I knew about part of what was needed. Then I was able to start working on that and learn the rest of what was needed, and that led me to be a solution architect today. So yeah, I echo what other people have said. Always, one good thing is to learn how to learn, right? So if you're a good learner, the better learner you can be, then the more successful you'll be, because you'll be more flexible and be able to take on new opportunities and when they arise. And before that, I worked on a variety of different technologies. One of the things I did at Lilly in the last 3 years I worked there, I was the web architect for their SAP. I don't know if you guys have heard of SAP, but it's a big popular software suite. And I didn't know anything about SAP before I started working in that role, but the role came up, and I had previous experience in general IT things, and so I was able to get that role. So yeah, learn how to learn. That'll stand you in good stead.
So system architecture is a great example, I think, of something that would exist across organizations, right? Regardless of what type of business you're in. Can you kind of give just a broad, for those that don't know what that is, like
Sure.
what it is that you do?
Yeah. So as a solution architect, so the business come to IT and say, hey, we got this problem. We got this business problem that we want to solve. We want to, like, for example, we want to start using this external program, external system, so that our agents can send us data or something like that. And so, as a solution architect, I would look and see what the need was, and then I would figure out how to solve that problem. So in order for this system to connect to this system, then we need to use this technology to connect them, and that's kind of what a solution architect does. They define the solution, document it, and so that the organization knows what they need to do to implement that solution. So that's kind of like an overview of that. In order to do that, I need to talk to a lot of people. So communication skills are very important. Be able to know what to ask and who to ask. That's a huge part of what I do. I don't do a lot of hands-on technical stuff anymore. I used to a lot, but not anymore. So that's kind of like solution architecture in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Well, so Sean, I'm going to move over to you because you kind of have a different perspective, right? You have kind of managed several different areas, and now you are in service delivery. So can you kind of walk us through your experience and some job opportunities that you've seen from that?
Yeah, I've had, I've actually worked at OneAmerica for over 25 years, but I always tell people I haven't had the same job for 25 years. I've had the same employer for 25 years. I've had many different jobs, and the jobs have varied considerably over the years, from different roles within the business outside of IT. So just operations, financial reporting, underwriting, things like that. Roles I've had. Moving in IT, I've had different roles in IT as well, from project management, business analysis, software testing. I would move into people leadership, and throughout my career, I have vacillated. I'll go between being and I come back into leading teams. Right now, I'm functioning more as an individual contributor, leading different kinds of teams. It's about connecting with people. It's about understanding the problems you're trying to solve, and equipping the folks that you're working with to make sure that you can unleash their talent so that they can achieve the objectives of the teams. Right now, I'm really focused on the vendors that we work with and rely upon. How can we hold them more accountable? How can we partner better with them? How can we help them help us more? So that's really my focus right now, is the different vendors that we work with to support our organization. How can we do so more effectively?
That's an interesting point. With IT, not everything is always in-house, right? So the majority of companies that I've worked for, we've had some type of outsourcing or at least vendor management to engage very specific skill sets that may not exist at OneAmerica, that may not be needed all of the time, but perhaps just for some small amount of time. So good call out there, Sean. Appreciate that. Kyle, I'm going to throw it over to you because you have from security. Security is such a hot topic these days. So can you kind of walk us through what you do and what's going on in the marketplace right now?
Sure. So as Jillian said, I'm on the security team. At this point in my career, I'm working with policies and standards and helping people build security into the projects. So I work with all of these fine people in different projects to make sure that we're thinking about things and how we're going to protect our customers' data, right? Because we're actually we're customers for our own company as well when it comes to the retirement plan, for example. So it's also our data, but also keeping our customers' data safe is one of our responsibilities. So so having a broad base to get to security is great because then you can talk about all different sorts of technologies and be able to talk about them with folks and then apply the security knowledge on top of that. Also, as Jillian said, security is a really hot area. There's, I think worldwide, there's something like 500,000 shortage of employees in the security area. Based off of the last thing I saw, it's just incredible and booming as people are trying to protect more and more of their data and their customers. So the biggest thing as far as getting into security, right, and IT in general, is really it's problem solving. If you like solving puzzles, you like solving solutions, that's probably how a lot of us got attracted to being in IT. Sure, I'll try that. I'll try to solve that problem, right? And then it becomes a little bit of an addiction to, okay, now give me the next problem. How do we work together to solve that one, right? And keep moving forward. Today, there are a lot of resources that you can use, at least to get introduced to the security area. If you look online for capture the flag events or CTFs, they have all sorts of ranges for just solving puzzles and saying, okay, I need to run this program on this computer. How do I do that? Sorts of things, and you can get points to do that. But if you're into puzzles, you're into problem solving, IT is definitely a place for you. And in security, if you like a diversity of different sorts of problems and ranging across all technologies and things, security is one of those that you can never know enough about enough things, and you work with all different sorts of people because it's across the board.
Nice. Thanks, Kyle. I'm going to throw a question out there for everybody and just ask you guys, if you could do any job that you're not doing right now in IT, your dream job, what would that be? I think for me, I would love to have some kind of skill set in drawing so that I could go into some kind of illustrating or other avenue, maybe with video games. But I think that a lot of people, when they think of IT, or they think of people kind of sitting in a box or sitting behind a computer and coding, or those video gamers. But it's much more broad than that. So what would you say, Dave? If you could do it all over again, where would you end up?
Oh, so yeah. So you're talking about if I could do any job I wanted, and I was already financially independent, so I didn't have to worry about that part of it. Yeah,
you could start all over again.
Yeah, well, I've always wanted to write, like novels and stuff like that. But to be honest, I mean, IT is like Carl was saying, IT is you get to solve problems, and that's satisfying, right? You want to have some kind of purpose in your life, and to be able to solve problems, as I said in the chat, you can jump between different industries and stuff. So if there's an industry that you're particularly interested in furthering their cause, then with IT you can have an option to solve their problems and make them successful. So that's what I find. I like to be in a position where I'm really making a difference by solving problems, and IT is my skill set now. I've been in IT since 1992 or something like that, almost 30 years. Is that right? Yeah. So I've been doing this all my working life, and I do find it satisfying. If I was a writer, there's a very small chance that I'd be very successful at doing that.
Fair enough.
So yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but
awesome. Sean, how about you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know that about Dave. We've actually talked about books before, but I didn't realize because I've always, kind of dreamt about being a writer as well. I also, my wife has suggested to me that I open a restaurant because I love to cook. Writing and cooking are things that I enjoy doing, and I don't know that I would enjoy them as much if they are what provided for my family. But I think for me, a big part of that is I enjoy creating things that are meeting the needs, pleasing other people. And I would say that definitely does relate to what we do in IT. Oftentimes we are presented with problems that need to be solved, and we have to create solutions for those problems. And we're trying to please our stakeholders, our customers, et cetera. And I think there's very much a tie-in to what drives me personally, that those things that I like to do in my hobby are also the same type of things that motivate me within the IT career.
That's interesting, Sean and Dave, because I too love to write and have some stuff published from my 20s. I actually thought when I got out of high school, I wrote for my paper. I edited my paper, and I had dreams of moving to Chicago and writing for the Sun Tribune. And my mom said, "Did you plan on making money when you were a grown up?" So that's what shifted me in the direction that I went. So I think that's fun that we have that commonality. Kyle, how about you?
Well, before we go to Kyle, real quick, so one of those things was, I like music too. I'm a musician, and it's surprising how many IT people are musicians as well. There's, you always come across musicians.
Yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to add was travel. I like to travel, and if you choose, IT is a great career to allow you to travel. There's plenty of consulting jobs you can have that would take you around the world. Recently it might be not so much, but with COVID and stuff like that. But in general, though, it's if you like to travel, then you can certainly do that in your IT career.
Awesome, Dave. Kyle. Before we go to you,
my answer actually ties right into the question. So.
Okay.
If I had to do it over again, I'd spend more time coding, because as we go through the future, everything is becoming code, right? Even the security. If you can code, you can code all of your configurations and everything and build it as code and make things work as components that then you build upon to make a bigger thing, right? So to the question of if there's a minimum college degree for some jobs, for some of the jobs we have today, we have a lot of experience in college degrees, so that's probably true. However, getting your foot in the door, I would say today, is not a requirement. So if you can code, for example, just having that skill and being able to do that, there are a lot of firms that would start you as an entry-level job to get you going. And some firms, if you can find them, they will even pay for your schooling so that you can work and go to school and keep going up with different jobs and different opportunities as you go through. So while some of the jobs that we have at this point are because of our lot of experience and some of our schooling, to get into the industry, again, if you can code, people great with that, because that's one skill that there are not enough developers around. But again, if you have a critical mind and have taken some certifications, for example, a lot of people in security start as a analyst for the Security Operations Center that are monitoring things to see if there's anything bad happening and then alerting people when that happens, right? That doesn't necessarily require a college degree either. It does require some knowledge beyond typical high school, but if you can get an internship or take an online class, for example, some of the massive online community classes, the MOOCs, they're out there to have some of those things you can take just for free and learn about them, right? And just getting your foot in the door and demonstrating the skills you have is what can get you there. And then working with your employer to develop your skills beyond there to end up being where you want to go.
And I think that's so key, Kyle, too. So, I can definitively say when I started in IT, I was in college, but I had no IT college degree. I worked my 2-year degree while I was working and learning, and then went on to my 4-year degree and then went on to my master's. I think one of the things that I can say is that when I got into high school, I followed some expectations that my parents had for me because I was a great student and I enjoyed biology, and I knew I couldn't go into journalism and make any money. So I followed that. And it wasn't until I kind of tripped into IT that I realized that I was heading down the wrong path. And then as I continued to get my degrees in line with the experience that I wanted to have, it helped me really refine. I have student loans from a lot of classes that I never ever used. But once I made the decision to move into IT and I started allowing the career path to drive what college classes I took, I used nearly everything that, to some extent that I took at that point. So, but I think there's just a lot of opportunities for you to learn even online. I can tell you that there's an awful lot of skill sets, even in programming, where self-teaching is where it's going to be, because you're only going to get a base in your classes, right? You're going to have projects, but how you use that in your real life experience is going to be very different than what you would have in college or what you would have in some of those, programming classes. So getting out there and be willing to load up, something on your computer and, grab a Java for Dummies book, if that's what it takes to kind of self-teach and play around with it. That curiosity will go nearly as far as a college degree in some cases.
So
yeah,
go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that it's really, really important in the IT space too, is to have that ability to learn. I know we've mentioned that several times because, the frameworks, the languages, the tools, et cetera, they change very, very rapidly now. So, when Dave was in school, it was fine to learn Java, and we still have Java around, yes, but folks coming out of schools now, they're learning multiple languages, and it really becomes more about finding ways to apply the logic, to learn and to create things that meet people's needs. So that passion and learning and growing is absolutely critical today. And we're at the 3-minute warning there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, going to Jill's question, something that I think I wish I would know in high school, and it's much more prevalent now than when I was in high school, is if you like coding, get involved with an open source project, because they may need help just documenting stuff, but that's a way to get your foot in the door, and eventually you can code and add to the project, right? And again, people are looking for developers, so they'll take whatever helps. So start looking at things, contact the contacts on there and try to get involved in that, or reach out to people and just try to get involved in different areas and be as active as you can to find out what you really like and what you don't.
Yeah, and I think, Devin, to go along with, Jill's question as far as, advice, I think, Devin, to answer your question, right out of high school, or even now while you're finishing in high school, like Kyle said, go out and seek out those opportunities, find mentors. I know that I do some mentoring on the side. I have several girls that I mentor myself. Most people that are in our position are very willing to share our experience or to kind of bring you along. And then I think, I wish somebody would have told me to have reasonable expectations of myself. And then also a career path. So you are not going to step out of high school or your 4-year degree and make, the most money in the world doing something. You have to get your foot in the door, and you have to be willing to start small. I know for me, I make nearly 3 times what I did when I took my first job in IT out of college. And thinking back then, I think, how did we do that? But just being willing to take those small steps and continue to climb, as you go, I think is really, really important. So I think we are about 1 minute out. I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us. I know, Jill, I'm not sure if there's a way for them to reach out if they have additional questions after the session. But I know that I'm always open to answer questions if they have them.
Yeah, me too.
No. All right. Sean, Kyle, anything to add as we close out?
Just thanks everyone for attending. Yeah, feel free to, I think, if there are questions, feel free to funnel them to Jill probably, and we can see how that can work out. But yeah, thank you all for